It's September the 14th, 2018, and I'm here with the newly elected Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, Paul Billingham. Paul, firstly, congratulations on your election. It's a big job, but one I'm sure you've gone in with your eyes open. But let's, before we talk specifically about the club, I'd like to talk about Paul Billingham, the person. Early involvement in sailing, how did that all evolve for you?
Yeah, it's thinking back, I think my first ever involvement, obviously I'm from the UK originally, and I'm from a town called Northampton, which is about as far away from the sea in the UK that you can get. So my first ever experience was on a topper on Hollowell Reservoir, and now if anybody knows me knows I'm 6'6" tall. I was quite tall then, even at 12 or 13, and on this little topper, which is basically a tray with a sail, was a bit of fun. But after that, got involved into dinghy sailing on a lake at Milton Keynes called Willen Lake, which is basically a big square on an Enterprise, and a number of years would go around after work. I was starting work by then, and after school, and do a bit of sailing on Willen Lake with my then girlfriend. From that we decided to go a little bit faster, so we got involved with catamarans, and particularly, unlike the Hobie's, a dart catamaran, an 18
Still on the lake?
No, we were moving on to the sea then,
right.
And I remember my final experience on that catamaran before I came to Australia was off the coast of North Wales in the Menai Strait. There's a national water sports centre there called Plas Menai, and we were out on a very, very cold day. My partner was helming and I was crewing. She had the talent, I had the weight, and 2 or 3 miles into one particular run, got the weight in the wrong place, pitch poled the dart. Took us 20 minutes to get her back up, probably 12 degrees of water. Had enough. Straight back to the Menai water sports place, a 4 or 5 mile run, got off, went for a shower. The coach goes, "It's the best run you've ever done." Was the run back when we were terrified, cold, wet, and had enough. But that was really my introduction to sailing, was literally little dinghies, bigger dinghies, and then we a bit faster on the catamarans.
Yeah, and so what brought you to Australia? What age did you come out here?
Oh, it was work. So my firm, Grant Thornton, I joined them when I was 19.
And you're still with them?
Still with them, 30 years now. About time I did something different, I think.
Yeah.
But they put me on a secondment out here in 1996 for initially 18 months, and we're still here, what, 22 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. And involvement, still interested in sailing, or had an interest in sailing when you came to Australia?
Yeah, again, it was through the firm. So when I arrived, my background was corporate recovery, and the recovery team used to go out on Wednesday night on Martin James's boat, which was the old Brindabella Infinity 3 at the time, the 60-footer. And we'd take clients out, do the usual sort of round the cans racing and back here, which I quite enjoyed. And after a year I started organising the clients coming out and so on. And yeah, I learned a little bit. You don't do much on a 60-footer on a Wednesday night, but you do get a bit of a taste for it. Martin then attracted a sponsor, which those of you remember was Team Jaguar. The boat was all painted green, and Jaguar wanted exclusive use of the boat, so Grant Thornton got kicked off. But he introduced me to Michael Cranich, and we took Marchioness for 3 or 4 years, which was a 76-footer, same basis, and I did a couple of deliveries with the guys, which I really, really enjoyed. And yeah, probably a little bit more active than before. They occasionally let me have a steer. I remember I terrified him once. We were coming up to the mark in Chowder Bay, and probably my racing rules were a little bit rusty, so we overtook a 25-footer on the inside, which scared everybody on board, but we got around, no accidents. And then towards the end of our time at Marchioness, I said to a couple of guys I'd like to buy a boat, and John Messenger, who we all know and remember very fondly, offered to sell me his boat, which was the North Shore 38 Wings 3. Right. And we did a deal with Messo, which is probably a deal you couldn't do now. I said, "John, I'll buy the boat, but I want to be on the marina." And he goes, "Oh, there's a weight in this, Paul." But anyway, somehow we bought the boat and we got on the marina. So don't ask me how that happened. I don't need to know. And John's no longer here to defend himself, sadly. But we learnt from scratch. I bought it with a friend who's still my co-owner on our latest boat. We've been sailing together now for 18 years.
And what's that boat that you got at the moment?
The current boat's called Defiant, so she's a 41-footer cruiser racer. We've had her since new, and we're perhaps looking to change her in the short term. But I always found in sailing it's good to have a partner who you can go with, and Pete, my co-owner, on Defiant, before that Elusive, before that Wings 3. We're very different people. He's an engineer, I'm an accountant, and together it seems to work quite well.
Right.
Yeah, so that was our story.
Yeah. And so I guess with involvement with John Messenger and Martin James, did that sort of introduce you into the hierarchy of the club a little bit? Were they sort of Commodores then, and when you knew them?
Yeah, well Messo had finished, so Messo had done his Commodore-ship. Martin, I think, was coming into the Commodore-ship at about that time. But I remember I had a call from him and Alan Green, probably 2003-04, said, oh, can we take you to dinner? So we went down to Otto's down at Woolloomooloo, which was very nice, and that's when they asked if I'd take over from Alan as the treasurer. And I sort of said, yeah, happy to do that. Wasn't really aware of how the club worked, and went to the AGM and didn't get up. It was a very big turnout at the AGM. It was a hung vote. It was myself and Swanee. And I lost that vote on a recount or on a second vote, which was a little bit embarrassing, and I wasn't quite aware of how clubs work. So I sat on the Audit, Planning and Risk Committee for 2 years, and then Swanee had had enough after a couple of years, and so I moved on in 2006. But the treasurer role was an interesting role. It was at a time when the club was coming out of a fairly tough time, which Alan and Martin and others had helped orchestrate the recovery from, whether it was the 98 Hobart or the rebuilding of the clubhouse. There's a bit of debt there. And so the opportunity to actually help the club turn around financially and continue their work was a really good one for me, which I really enjoyed. And we knuckled down for 4 or 5 years. I think I was 8 years as treasurer all up, really just trying to make sure the club was stable. At the end of the day, you can't service members' needs unless you've got some money. And that was very much our focus.
But then I guess, so you've got a real idea of how the club works financially and membership-wise and sailing-wise. So then you came up from treasurer to rear, and did 2 years there. Yeah, and then on to vice. And that was a big move, Peter, because I'm not a blue water sailor. I sail offshore, but I'm not someone to do a Gold Coast or a Hobart race. It's not the sort of sailing I like to do. Mainly probably lack of ability, but also a very dodgy back. And so for me it was, should I really be anything other than a treasurer or a director of the club? Is my ability to contribute really limited to financial, or could I do more? So I actually spoke to Messo at the time and Martin, a number of senior members, to say, is there a role for me? Do you think I'd be needed as a rear commodore? I got some positive response, and I asked the same question 2 years later when going for vice commodore, and the same question when going for commodore, because I think people take roles in clubs for different reasons, and I've always been very aware that I've got a contribution to make, but it's finite, and if members feel that you've run your race and you've done enough, then you need to step aside. And so I've always been very respectful of the senior members of the club and the people who are active sailors to see whether or not I could actually make a difference and contribute in a way they wanted. Well, I think the club have been, very lucky, and certainly in my 50-odd years here, that everyone that's, not I'd say everyone, but almost everyone that's put themselves up for the board, and certainly for the role of Commodore, have had a passion for the club and a passion for sailing. I don't remember any Commodore that's just been purely for ego, and I think that's what has made the club very strong.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's if you're there for the ego, well, you're not there for the right reasons. And as there's serving a lot of members here at this club, a lot of members, and
they're very diverse members as well.
Sure.
And that's for me, that's why I guess that's how I reconciled to the fact that I think I could do something for the club, in that the club isn't all about one particular type of racing.
No.
We've got 2,800 or so members. And I always make the point that probably 400 of those members will sail to Hobart each year, and maybe 15% of the boats on the marina will go. We need to make sure we absolutely honour and respect and drive that, but we embrace all the members' interests. They're all here for different reasons. Some are purely social, some want to do cruising, some want to do semi-serious racing, some are coming away from a racing career, others are building up to it. And so I think the ability to appeal to those particular interest groups is really, really important, not just for the Commodore but for the board. Yeah,
it's very diverse. But before we get onto the club specifically, just getting back to your sailing. So you race now, the short haul races and
we
twilights and
I struggle with twilights, getting the crew out. But we always do the short haul. We always do the winter series. We toy with SOPs. My crew is made up of friends. We're mainly a female crew at the moment as well. So the next boat I buy will be a little bit more friendly for a lighter crew, rather than significant large poles that we're driving around offshore in 25 knots and 3 metre seas. It's not particularly fun doing that. We try and do other regattas. We had some success here in the Sydney Harbour Regatta. We've been up to Hamilton 3 or 4 times. So we do a variety of sailing that suits the crew that we have at the time. And that's one of the big challenges, is keeping your crew. I know it is for members.
Yes. So we look now, I mean, as I said, September 2018, the club are going through a huge renovation or refurb. What's, 2 years you've got at the helm? Well, hopefully 2 years.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, but certainly 1 year.
Yeah.
What's your vision for the club going forward, say over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's one which I know has been uppermost in people's minds for the last year or two. Where are we going with this? You can focus very much on, oh, let's change the building, let's change the marine, let's change the car park. But in essence, the club's about the people. It's a bit like a church. It's not the building, it's the people who are here. And the big focus is, as I mentioned a moment ago, recognising the diversity of the members, why they're here, why they come along, and how they choose to spend their leisure time with us. So really embracing that and recognising they have a voice, listening to that voice and making sure that our board is very attuned to members' needs. That doesn't mean everybody's right all the time. You've got divergence of views. But at the end of the day, driving it forward in a way that the members respect and value and feel they've got a contribution to. And it's the same in business. At the end of the day, if you don't know who your stakeholders are and what they're looking to get out of the relationship, then you're actually going to achieve nothing. So for me, it's first of all making sure that the members are recognised, that we recognise the fact that we're there to serve them and look after their interests, and we deliver the sort of club which they're after. So that's the number one issue. I guess the next one is to identify the fact that the sport of sailing is changing. I mentioned a moment ago, it's very hard to attract crew. How do we get more people coming into the club? How do we get more boats out on the water? How can we support those 211 yachts on the marina, plus the other 200 or 300 that members own, to get out there and race or get out there and cruise and do whatever they want to do? So that means making it easier to race. It means helping us attract crew, training people, bringing people through our youth sailing squads, but also broadening that out as well. We have an ageing membership. How do we actually bring in younger people and hang on to them, keep them interested in the race? So there's two aspects to what we're looking to do, is the member first focus and improving and increasing the volume of sailing we do and the variety of sailing that we do. Those are the two issues that we've put forward.
Do you think, a little question from left field I guess, and I guess the 1998 Hobart race dictates this somewhat. Do you think we're a little over-regulated in our sailing?
Yeah, that's, from my perspective, for the long offshore races, again, not being a blue water sailor myself, I don't think we are. I think there's a duty of care that we have now, and people are far more aware in this day and age of duty of care, whether it's health, workplace health and safety, whether it's just looking after the members of the public and so forth. So there is that accountability. For what I've seen over the last 13 years I've been on the board has been incredibly focused on getting that balance between risk and risk mitigation, and the fact that it's a sport that people need to enjoy. But the fact is, the club has to be very focused on this. We're pretty unique in the world of sport that one club is organising a global event like this. Look at any other sport that happens in Australia, the peak events they do, whether it's the cricket, the soccer or the tennis, they're organised by national bodies. This is one club, an amateur club with an amateur board that's running a world-class event. We have to be very, very risk aware. So I think at that end of the fleet, no. Equally, my boat's in Cat 4 safety. It's no big issue getting it renewed each year, provided you're on top of it, and you owe that duty to your crew, that when something does go wrong, you've got the right gear, properly maintained, you know how to use it. So I don't think it's overly regulated. I think it's about right. Is it annoying to have to go through these checks every year? Of course it is. But I can bet you bottom dollar that when there's an issue, you'll appreciate having been through that discipline.
Yeah. Just getting back to the renovations of the club, I think we're probably 6 or 8 weeks away from finalising that towards the end of October. I think we're hopeful of getting it up and running. I'm personally going through a walkthrough on Monday with a few of the committees.
You are, yep.
So are you happy with the progress and how it's going to end up? I mean, it's hard to say at this stage.
Oh, look, I think so. Yeah, it's been a huge project, and ever since I came on the board under Jeff Lavis, we've been talking about the renovations of the club. We started off with the hard stand and the extension to D-arm. We filled in the slipway, and the biggest challenge was actually getting moving. They're quite easy things to do because they're not part of the core function of the club. The challenge about what we did next, we had plans for a DA for the car park, the multi-storey car park, which was very, very expensive. It'd be lovely to have, but is that the best use of money? But the commitment and the drive, led by Paul Clitheroe and others who said, geez, we've just got to get on and do this, was important. Seeing it now coming out of the ground is exciting, it's scary. Did we get it right? Have we got the right feel inside when we get there? But it's something which will set us up, Peter, for the next 20 years. Once that's done, there's nothing much more we can do on this site. We can finish off our car parks, we can do the front wall, we can look after things properly. But essentially that's our site done. We're not allowed to put anything else on here. We can't build any more buildings. We're quite regulated in that respect. So this is our big thing. This is our big legacy that we're going to leave for the next 20 years. So we are on time. We've got a couple of driving factors. We have the Invictus Games coming in 2 days after we vacate the temporary clubhouse. And our builder has booked a corporate function on the Saturday night where he's taken all his clients along and he's speaking. So our builder is quite motivated to finish on time as well. So we think we've got a few drivers for that.
Good.
Yeah.
Sydney Hobart race, obviously that's the jewel in the crown of this club, and it's been going since 1945 every year, and next year is our 75th anniversary race. I mean, already I know that there's a lot of planning going into that. What are the, we're hopeful, I guess, of 150 plus entries, I would think, that would be a vision for this.
We're certainly hoping for that.
Yeah. And as I say, planning's already in place for that. We've got a lot of things going to happen around that time.
Yes.
Do you see, how will that be different, do you think? Obviously 75 years was a significant milestone.
Yeah, we actually had a meeting of the committee, the first meeting of that committee this morning. We're making sure we combine the 75th running of the race with the 75th anniversary of the club, to make sure that, yes, of course, the race is the feature, it's the blue ribbon, it's the flag at the end of that particular year, but there's going to be a programme of events celebrating the 75th anniversary of the club leading into the 75th Rolex Sydney Hobart yacht race. I asked the committee this morning, if we were to sit here in December 2019 and reflect back, what would a good year look like? And we have this philosophy in the board, which we've introduced into that committee, that whatever we do is through the lens of honouring the past, looking to the future, but recognising that we're in the present. So we want to make sure that everything we do to celebrate the 75th, yes, is respectful of how the club has developed, where it's come from, is progressive and is looking forward for the next 25 years up to the 100th anniversary of the club and the race, but also recognises the fact that members are here and now and they're expecting a certain level of recognition and service and so on. So we're going to try to get a combination of great events, new events. We really want to use the clubhouse a lot and get more people coming through it. It's there for the members, it's not there as a corporate function venue. It's there to actually have member events and have 1 or 2 quality events each month. But equally, celebrating the race itself. Yes, the 150 yachts, how do we recognise the history? Do we publish something? Do we record that history for posterity in different ways? How do we actually embrace the heart of the club in a way that's valued by the members?
Yeah. I know that a couple of things that I'm intimately involved with the club. We're looking at a Legends dinner and Legends of the Club, which has never been done before.
Yep.
And then we're hopeful of having about 3 or 4 weeks before the actual 75th Hobart, we're having a veterans or a vintage regatta for boats that have gone to Hobart prior to 1975.
Right.
We're very hopeful of having 30 or 40 plus boats for that. That's a 2-day regatta. So they're things that will evolve, I guess, in time, but they're the things that will make this race so special.
Absolutely, and the variety of events that you're talking about there. I mean, the Legends dinner, that'll be held in November, the first one. It'll be joined up with the 20-year members dinner, and then we'll be holding it annually thereafter. We'll look to induct, say, 10 or a dozen people each year, both past and present members, to recognise that. That was an initiative of John Marcos's, and I think it's a good one. The events such as you mentioned with the older boats, it was so well done this year, the Admiral's Cup anniversary, which was a wonderful event and really well attended. That's the sort of breadth of event that we want to bring in.
Well, that's into heavy promotion already. So if we, being on the committee with a few others, we're hopeful of 30 plus yachts racing that. So it'll be a great lead into the.
It will be, and we're also promoting, Peter, the race to the world of yachting. So we're sending out a message and a video to the major clubs around the world promoting the 75th, as we did for the 70th, where Gordon Bray did a great voiceover of a video that went out. A lot of interest coming in from America, I've learnt today, off the back of some of the work that the Comanche guys are doing. And so, yeah, if we can get 160 boats plus coming in with 20 or 30 countries represented, that would be a sensational recognition.
Yeah. Paul, just in finishing, away from sailing, away from the CYC, do you have any time to do anything else? And away from work, what gives you leisure time?
Oh, yeah, it's probably a distraction. Obviously, I've got a young daughter. She's 13. She's obviously the apple of Daddy's eye, as you'd expect, and she's a big skier and snowboarder. So we spend the best part of 3 months each year down at the snow, and then supporting her in what she does. I do a little bit in the political space, but not too much. More on the organisation side and more on the helping raise money side, which is all about politics. Work is still a big thing. I'm still relatively young and 30 years at one firm. I look after the consulting arm at Grant Thornton, which is working with companies, boards, CEOs, which I enjoy. But it's pretty full. I think the role here at the CYC has changed. I was probably busier as treasurer in terms of the nitty-gritty of the job. Here, it's very much a team effort. We've got a great board here, a diverse board, and we're very much going out to the members, to the sailing world as a board. So what you won't see is just the Commodore attending the events. We share that role amongst the flag officers and amongst the wider members of the board. Each member of the board has got a job. There are no passengers on this board. They're either running an initiative or they're running a standing committee. And so that does share the workload somewhat, Peter.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, Paul, thank you. I think on behalf of the membership, I think the club's in very good hands. I wish you well.
Thank you.
I'm sure that you'll do a great job and your passion really comes out. And we look forward to many successful years down at the CYC. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Peter. Cheers.